Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today. It is August 4th. It is Thursday. And late last night on August 3rd, news came out, breaking news, about the appointed governor of New York, Kathy Hochul. It is shocking. It is amazing. Kathy Hochul, it appears, is killing black people. Kathy Hochul, the appointed governor of New York running for re-election, is killing poor people. And this is a claim that is coming not from Republicans, not from myself. This is coming from Democrats. It's an amazing story, and we're going to talk about that. But first, before we get started, we do want to mention, if this is the first time that you're seeing our channel, we want to welcome you and we thank you for being part of our audience. We want you to know that we do long-form political commentary. And every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out on all the social media that the internet overlords will allow to hear what you have to say. Because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe it's not just an American right, it is a birthright for everyone, that you have a right to speak about the issues that affect your lives. And even if your government doesn't agree, even if the internet overlords don't agree, every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we want to hear what you have to say. Now, some people may take what I have just said about Kathy Hochul, the appointed governor of New York. She's been in office for less than a year, an office that has been filled with corruption. She had to fire her lieutenant governor and replace him because of corruption. People will say, well, Mike, you're just being hyperbolic. This is not real. No, it is very real. And the news came out last night from the New York Post. But before I get to that, I want to make sure you understand what I mean. This isn't something new or something crazy. As you can see, looking back on the news, this comes from The Guardian. And The Guardian reported on, it was March of 2019, people are dying. This came from Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez herself, a representative in Congress out of the Bronx. She made it very clear. In fact, she said, as was quoted, "You want to tell people that their desire for clean air and clean water is elitist? Tell that to the kids in the South Bronx, which are suffering from the highest rates of childhood asthma in the country. You're telling those kids that they are trying to get on a plane to Davos. People are dying." She was talking about the Green New Deal. She was talking about climate change, the greatest threat to the world, according to many progressives and many Democrats. We've heard this from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez before. She's told us that we had less than 12 years before the world would die because of greenhouse gases, because of the climate change. She wasn't the only one making the warnings and telling us that greenhouse gases, that the climate change was the most important issue in the world and that people were dying because of it. You may recall, it was Greta Thunberg. As in fact, going back to an article from Yahoo News, Greta Thunberg and Al Gore react to climate change bakes Europe with record heat. This was July 19th of 2022. And Greta had put out a tweet at the time. This is not the new normal. The climate crisis will continue to escalate and get worse as long as we stick our heads in the sand and prioritize profit and greed over people and planet. We are still sleepwalking towards the edge. It's been very clear. Greenhouse gases, according to the progressives, according to Democrats, is the greatest threat to the world. We're hearing it from their leaders. They're telling us that we have to be responsible, we have to take action, and they're not the only ones making the claims of how this is hurting not just the world, but specifically Black people, poor people, minorities in the United States and across the world. Don't believe me? That's okay. Here is the EPA, On September 2nd of 2021, EPA report shows disproportionate impacts of climate change on socially vulnerable populations in the United States. They go on to say, from the EPA, a new EPA analysis released today, September 2nd, shows that the most severe harms for climate change fall disproportionately upon underserved communities who are the least able to prepare for and recover from heat waves, poor air quality, flooding, and other impacts. This is one of the key reasons why the Biden-Harris administration have been focused on social change, why they have been looking at diversity, and they have been focusing the United States government into trying to benefit communities of color above and beyond anyone else. You might call that racist. They don't. That's fine. But I want you to understand, they made this the point. And if you still don't believe that we're talking about black people, that we're talking about minorities, well, let me make it very clear for you from the left. This is from the ACLU, and this is their At Liberty podcast. Climate change is a racial justice issue. They said, quote, over the last couple of months, climate disasters have erupted around the world. In the U.S. alone, we're seeing wildfires in the West Coast, tornadoes in the Midwest, and hurricanes pummeling the Gulf and East Coast. The environments we live in have become hostile to our health, our livelihood, and our community. Many have been forced to leave their homes, and some will never be able to return. Globally, nearly 24 million people have been displaced due to climate effects since 2008. But this issue, both in the United States and around the world, isn't impacting everyone equally. Black, brown, and indigenous people are disproportionately impacted by climate change. This is a racial justice issue, an immigration issue, and an indigenous rights issue. I think we've made the point. The left, progressives, Democrats in the United States, in our elected offices, and those who represent many other nations around the world are telling us that climate change is deadly, and it is deadly specifically for black people and for minorities and for the poor. They have said it over and over again. Hell, let's go to Joe Biden back in 2020 when he said, according to the LA Times, and this was on July 14th of 2020, a little over 2 years ago, climate change is a challenge that is going to define our American future. I know meeting the challenge will be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to jolt new life into our economy, strengthening our global leadership, protect our planet. This is what he is saying. And he said it over and over. Matter of fact, you don't even have to look to 2 years ago for Joe Biden. Look at Joe Biden just this July 20th on 2022. Biden announces new climate change programs, but no emergency declared. He goes on to say, President Joe Biden announced new executive steps to combat climate change on Wednesday, a move that comes as Democrats urged the administration to issue climate emergency declarations amid stalled negotiations over major environmental legislation in Washington, D.C. They're looking to spend $2.3 billion in funding for programs that help communities prepare for disaster because of climate change. It's straightforward, folks. It's that clear. We are spending billions. They want to spend perhaps even trillions because climate change is killing black people, minorities, and the poor. Now, I've made this redundant and I've made it clear because I want you to understand that this is coming from the left. This is using the rules of the progressives and Democrats to make the point that they make on a regular basis when they want to attack anyone else. So let's be very clear. That's their position. Climate change kills black people. Okay, then when we see this news that came out late last night, August 3rd, and we see the news came out, Kathy Ayer, Governor Hochul leaves taxpayers with a $250,000 tab for flights around New York. Now, the New York Post is very, very concerned about how much it is costing taxpayers. They're looking at the dollar cost. What we know for sure is that Kathy Hochul has been taking numerous planes and helicopters to travel across all of New York State. She isn't driving across New York State. She isn't going city to city in an Uber or even in a government vehicle. God forbid she would use an electric vehicle. No. She's not doing what Pete Buttigieg has demanded that you must do in your daily life. He told you have to go out and buy an electric car. Colbert from the Colbert Show laughed at you, said, who cares if gas could cost $15 a gallon and he doesn't care? He has an electric car. You are a joke, and you are being told you must own an electric car. You cannot use gas because of climate change. And Kathy Hochul is using no electric vehicles. She's not using a government vehicle. She's flying helicopters and private jets. Over 250 times she has taken private jets and helicopters to travel, going to Binghamton, New York, where I live, going to Albany, going to Rochester, New York City, across the entire state. And she even took a Beechcraft King Air 200 plane from Albany to fly her 400 miles west to Buffalo at taxpayer expenses. Taxpayers are paying for this. You're paying for this. New York State, the highest taxes in the country, an economy that is $8 billion in debt, an economy that is falling apart as the United States is in a recession with inflation over 9.1%. That is continuing to deteriorate. And she is taking the few dollars that New York State residents have, and she is burning it in the engines of these airplanes and these helicopters to go and campaign because she wants to get reelected. And it's important, as the New York Post highlights, that she has spent over $250,000 in less than a year to do this. So I want to be very clear about that. But when you start looking at this, and we have more than 60 flights that we know of with airplanes and with helicopters that she has taken, and the math is amazing. Mind you, she has paid $4,000. As reported by the New York Post, she did contribute $4,000 for these hundreds of airplane and helicopter flights that she has taken across the state. $4,000 for hundreds of private jets and helicopter trips all across New York State. It is amazing. But she says she has to do it because it's important. She has to be a governor of the people. Mind you, no one said she can't drive. It's been costing people $130 to fill their gas tank as she's just burning away their money. The New York Post worked it out that at the rate that she is paying, over $275,000 has been spent by New York State taxpayers to give Kathy Hochul this luxury royal treatment. While you can barely fill your gas tank, you are afraid to plug in your car because the electric grid can't handle it. In Rochester, New York, they got electric buses and they can't plug them in because the city, the grid, the electric grid can't charge 2 electric buses. We're not talking about a fleet. We're not talking about redoing every bus in Rochester. They added 2 electric buses for public transportation, and they can't charge them without causing a citywide brownout. That tells you the status of things. But Kathy Hochul is in the lap of luxury. And as Democrats have said themselves, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Greta Thunberg, Al Gore, Joe Biden, they have said, this is killing Black people. This is killing minorities. This is killing the poor. This is causing harm to children throughout New York State, and of course, as a consequence, to the rest of the world. This is something that should be, according to the left, there should be protests. We should see college students and progressives rallying together right now, walking on Albany, demanding that appointed Governor Kathy Hochul resign, that she never be reelected, that she never holds another elected office because she is abusing the environment. She is endangering the lives of Americans everywhere, because climate change is health, and that is a health emergency, according to the Democrats themselves, not using any Republican values whatsoever. Republicans are upset about the cost to taxpayers. I'm talking about the issues that's important to Democrats. And they should be rioting like they riot for everything else. They should at least be protesting Kathy Hochul right now. I want you to understand, when we say that this is a devastating amount, what is the massive impact? Well, we went out and we checked, and we found out that according to Paramount Business Jets, their private jet carbon emissions offset system, the King Air 350 planes that Kathy Hochul regularly uses for these exclusive luxury trips. Well, if we assume she's only in the air for 2 hours at a time, and we know she's in the air for far, far more than that, but if we just assume that she's in the air for 2 hours at a time, that's 5,740 pounds of greenhouse gases, 3 metric tons of greenhouse gas that she is putting into the environment that never needed to be there, that never needed to exist. Let me make it even more clear. For those of us who don't follow this like a progressive, who don't know the conversions out there, we went to the EPA and we tried to figure out, well, what is this like? 750 metric tons of gas. What is that? Well, according to the EPA, this is the same thing as if Kathy Hochul had driven a car 1.86 million miles. It's the same amount of gasoline that it would take 162 people driving a car to equal the same amount of greenhouse gas as Kathy Hochul has done in less than 1 year. That sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Well, hang on. Let's think about this. This is the same thing to offset these carbon emissions from Kathy Hochul herself. According to the EPA, we're talking you would have to plant 12,401 trees. That is worth 888 acres of U.S. forests in 1 year. This, and by the way, when I say 12,000 trees that you have to plant, you would have to plant 12,401 trees and let them grow for 10 years to offset what Kathy Hochul has done to the environment in New York State in 1 year. Now, you may say, Mike, you don't believe in man-made global warming. I don't. But I do believe in a clean environment. I do believe in a better earth than what I found it. And I do believe that we can improve our planet just like we can improve racism. We can improve everything in our society if we work towards it. but I don't believe in the fear-mongering that we often see. But Democrats do. And Democrats and progressives created the rules that are affecting our economy, that are affecting our lives. This is the reason that we have seen Joe Biden, why he, as he promised in 2019, as he promised in 2020, to kill our oil and gas industries, to force America to become a renewable energy country, just like President Obama had said that he was looking to necessarily skyrocket electric costs. They have achieved their goal. These are their rules. I am judging them by. And I have to ask you, this news came out in the middle of the night. Do you know why? Because they don't want you to pay attention. This is news that came out in the middle of the night, and not one Democrat is screaming. Not one protest is planned. The very same climate change activists that are demonizing you for going to and from work and filling up your gas tank because you have to take your family to school or to the hospital or anything else, these very same activists are giving a pass to appointed Governor Kathy Hochul because she's one of their own, because she is a neo-noble and you are a serf. She is above you with a whole different set of rules that she lives by. You don't get to have freezers full of ice cream. You don't get to have a walled-off mansion. You get to live the worst of the life. Now, I would like to tell you, whether you agree or not with the progressive left, that's their rule. That's their determination. They said that greenhouse gases are killing black people, that they are killing minorities, that they are killing the poor in New York State and around the world. They should hold Kathy Hochul accountable like they demonize everyone else. She should not be reelected. She should have to resign, and she should be disgraced just like her former boss and partner, Andrew Cuomo. Isn't that the right thing to do? Isn't that what Greta Thunberg would tell you to do? Isn't that what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is demanding for the black kids in the South Bronx? And who are we to deny those black kids justice? But I'd like to hear what you have to say about this. Please leave your comment below, and we hope that we will see you every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our live stream where you get to comment on this and other issues that affect us all. I know you've heard it before. What difference does it? You make the difference. When you watch, chat, tweets, your likes and shares and your subscription, you make the difference. From across the world, you help us to keep the lights on and the stream alive. You are making the difference to fight the woke and the crazy legislation that we see before. We at No Soundbites Allowed, and I want to thank you for everything that you do in helping us reach our goal, and your likes, your tweets, your comments, and your subscriptions to the channel. We want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. And this is a special thank you to those who have donated to the channel and helped us in all of our efforts. We will strive to make this channel the best that we possibly can, because you deserve no less. Thank you.